Namaskar dosto and welcome from 0x to 100x. Today we have a fantastic opportunity called Chakachak EV. You've probably not heard of this company, but it has too much innovation. This company is unlisted, which means the normal public does not have access to it. And the secret here is in 3 months, it's going to go IPO. Once it IPOs, you'll make lots and lots of money. So here is how you buy this secret unlisted share, which is really exciting. Step number 1. What? Something was clearly wrong with that video. I mean, unlisted shares, it's going to go IPO, guaranteed paisa banega. I mean, is it really that easy? A shiny company suddenly going IPO and you getting secret access? I mean, there must be some risk, right? So in this episode, we're going to learn through case studies about unlisted shares. What is really shiny about them and what's dangerous about it. We'll talk about the good and the bad because clearly the internet won't tell you both. Let's begin. In the last 1 year, 75% of all stocks which listed on the exchange actually gave a listing gain, which means if you applied for the IPO, the chances of you making money was 75%. Now imagine this is already pretty good, but what if you could buy the stocks even before the IPO and multiply that return by buying it when it's in the private market, when only the employees, the founders and private investors have invested. I mean, it's like an inside deal. This is the world of unlisted shares. You can buy sexy companies for apps you use on your phone, your daily life, manufacturing, EVs, you name it. And you're buying it when the actual public has no access to it. And I think there's another problem. When you're applying for an IPO, you have to apply for the IPO. You may not even get allotment. In the unlisted market, you'll actually get the allotment way before the entire IPO thing happens. I mean, you're getting a secret deal. The thing about tech companies and startups which have raised funding and are going to go IPO is that they have growth on their side. And this growth of exponential curve, you know about this, all the gains happen towards the end because exponential growth is happening. So the earlier you get in, the better. And if you can get in even before it IPOs, imagine the kinds of gains you can get. And I have no idea why other people aren't doing this. It sounds like such easy money, doesn't it? I also think it's really cool. All those private equity players, all those VC players can access these sexy companies, but you can't. Because hum to aam janta hai. Humko to last mein milta hai. But with the internet and some new platforms, we can join that club. So how can you invest in these shares? Well, first, you can't log into a broking account and actually get it because they're not listed. So you have a bunch of ways. One, if you know the founders, you can get it from there. You can get it from ESOP holders, those are employees, where the shares have been allotted to them and you can buy it from them. You could also go to some kind of broker who's offering these kind of services to give you access. And finally, there are some online websites which give you access to these kinds of shares. Now, when you do this transaction, remember, it's in the gray market. So it's not white and regulated, but it's not black and illegal. It's right in between. It's gray. Now, the internet says exactly what I just told you and keep saying the word sexy, sexy, sexy. And keep saying this is cool, gives you FOMO, but no one really talks about the risks, do they? But you know what de-influencing does? We talk about the risks. So put in the comments, de-influencing army. Let's talk about the first risk. Liquidity risk. Liquidity basically means, let's suppose I pay some money and acquire these shares. Now, once I own these shares that I bought in the gray market, which is unregulated, I now am a proud owner of a piece of company that I think is cool. The problem here is because there's no central exchange, I can't immediately sell this to someone. I'll have to go to a broker or an individual and somehow find a buyer for this. It's unorganized. Excuse me, hi, excuse me, can you buy this share? Excuse me, can you buy? It's tough. Finally, the biggest liquidity risk is actually the company going IPO. You've probably bought this stock thinking that it'll list, there'll be listing gains, liquidity hogi, you'll hold on to it or maybe you'll sell it. But what if the company never goes public? Think about it. Just because a company is doing well doesn't mean it'll IPO. Just because the promoter said we will IPO doesn't mean they will IPO. It is an assumption and not in the hands of the promoter or you. And we have an interesting example here. If I asked you, do you think the future is the metaverse in the next 5, 10, 15 years, what would you say? You'd probably say yes. In some form, we'd probably be living in virtual reality in the future, right? Right? So did the investors of Jaunt VR. Jaunt VR started in 2011, and we can see it raised $60 million before its IPO. And they talked about VR content, how the future will change, but the reality was really different. The VR adoption was much slower than expected, and because of this, the growth projections changed. And because they changed, everything that the investors thought would be true did not happen. Valuations did not make sense, and they could not IPO, which meant a bunch of people were sitting on a piece of paper because the growth never happened and the IPO never happened. So assuming just because a company gets funded that it'll IPO perhaps is incorrect. The second risk is information or data. And I'm not talking about your data, I'm talking about the company's data. But when you're investing in a private company, it's still trying to find product market fit. So you have to analyze all these different parts. I think there's another problem as well. Apart from the scarcity of information, there are no analysts fighting out on reports of this industry and the company to tell you the risks involved. So if you don't have really intelligent analysts researching this, how will you come to a consensus whether the company is good or not? Usually, people like us aren't smart enough to figure this out. But a consensus system where many people are analyzing in public market scenario actually works out really well. So basically, the problem is, private company hai, information private hai, how will you analyze whether the company is doing well or not? There's actually a really good example called Theranos. Theranos was run by Elizabeth Holmes, and she said that they have a new technology that can revolutionize blood testing. Their company said they have a technology which can do the same diagnostic tests with just a small little vial. Now, this was revolutionary. Imagine how many people would be able to find out their tests faster, with less hassle, at more locations, and maybe in the future at a lesser cost. Now, I want you to imagine, with such a technology, what would the IPO do? Well, in this case, the IPO never happened. They found out that the technology never really existed and everything was a work in progress. A lot of the test results were actually faked and done with original, just normal way of doing diagnostics. So the technology didn't exist. Everything was a farce. All she always said was the technology is private, I cannot reveal how it works. And all the investors who invested held on to a piece of paper which was worth nothing. Then we have the third risk, valuation risk. So let me explain this very simply. In a private company, you have a bunch of guys or investors deciding the valuation of the stock. Now, I'm not saying they could be wrong, but it's unlikely they will actually give a fair valuation compared to an entire market. So in an unlisted scenario, when you're buying shares, the price is determined by the founders/investors and other people involved, not market forces. Market forces are when they are on the stock market and many people are trading it, trying to value the stock, which is why it moves around so much. A really good example is Reliance Retail. Now, people bought the stock in the unlisted market for a certain price, and then Reliance Retail basically said the new price of the stock is going to be X. And everyone who bought the unlisted stocks basically lost a lot of money through this decision. Now, did Reliance Retail do something wrong? Absolutely not. They are a private company and can value their own shares based on how pessimistic or optimistic they are and what's good for their company. That is your risk. And that's why this is called valuation risk. And then we have the fourth risk, regulatory risk. So SEBI does a bunch of stuff to actually protect the retail investor. Now, all of these things are only applicable once the company is public. In a private scenario, the unlisted shares, none of these protection systems are actually there. I think every investment you look at, you have to see from the perspective of risk. And a great way to understand this is to assume that if government bonds are the highest secure investment out there relative to other investments, and the most risky is probably, let's say, cryptocurrency, you should always prefer to invest top down. So you allocate more here and you allocate the least here. Now, usually you will not have enough money left to go down the highly risky route of unlisted shares, private angel investing, etc. Because you have such interesting options up top. You have bonds, and maybe you don't want to invest in highly risky stuff like unlisted shares, angel investing in startups, or maybe like cryptocurrency. The preference of order is always save first and then move down the highly risky route last. So I think this is where psychology comes in. You have this hero fallacy. Think about it. If I tell you that a doctor is a hero, sitting down, listening to his patient, gives him one pill, and that patient now, is doing better. And perhaps he's a hero. But then when we say the word hero, we don't think of nurses or doctors and so many other professions which sound mundane. We think about a really gigantic man with lots of muscles, walking down a hill, climbing up a mountain with a sword, trying to kill a dragon. And that sounds highly risky and sexy and interesting. Similarly, in asset classes, crypto and unlisted shares, all of this sounds like the He-Man. And everyone wants to go after it because it feels high risk, high reward, and there's a thrill to it. But the truth is, when you're investing, you're not really looking for a thrill. You're actually trying to look for some kind of growth. So don't fall for this hero fallacy where shiny objects just look pretty and you want to own them because they're shiny. Then we have the bandwagon effect. I remember going with Swati to Bali, and there were 4 different ice cream shops, and I had to choose one. One shop had a really long line, and everyone was just standing in line there. We didn't have time. We also stood in line despite the other ice cream shops not having a queue, and got our ice cream. The ice cream sucked, and we didn't finish it. And then we found out that everyone in line were actually the employees of that ice cream shop. When we see a line, we feel like getting into it. If everyone likes it, perhaps I will like it too. And I think stock markets work very similarly. When everyone's going after a shiny object and there's a long line, you feel the FOMO and you want to do it. Never let the bandwagon effect feel like I should do this because everyone else is. Probably do a little bit of analysis and watch our videos so you can learn how to do that analysis. If you had to take away one thing from this video, I think the one thing would be this. Financial markets operate with greed. Everyone trying to sell you a financial product is making money by selling you a dream in the future. Your job is to make sure that this person is not overselling. Your job is to understand the risks. I know sometimes the de-influencing series sounds like we keep talking about risks too much, but it's important because the internet is only talking about greed. So someone has to balance the scales, no? Someone has to say, अच्छी चीज है, of course there's a chance of you doing well, but what about the risks? Which is why the de-influencing series with all of this just talks about the bad stuff, the risks that no one does. So I really hope you appreciate us bringing the risks to light, because once you understand the risks and once you know the worst case scenario, you will conquer something that no one else has, and that's fear. The biggest fear in markets is, yaar agar ye ho gaya, my money will go away. But if you have a good understanding of that, you will survive the largest dips because you understand the risks. So I hope this was helpful. Type de-influencing army in the comments below and tell us what next topic we should pick. See you in the next episode.
क्या बोल रहे हो?
ठीक है, ठीक है, ठीक है.
Yeah.